My name is Hisham Murad. I'm also joined by the co-founder and VP of Engineering, David Estes. We're going to touch very quickly on costing and cost analytics and the FinOps persona, if you will. So I know for time's sake, I'm going to go and jump right into this, but these are a few of the things I want to cover as part of the demonstration. I'm going to jump into the demonstration here very quickly, and I'll let David Estes come in and provide some additional information around this. So jumping right into the demo, if you will. So again, from a costing perspective, we like to give a lot of cost visibility. I often tell organizations I work with is that if you can't measure it, how can you manage it? So you have to have some costing analytics and some cost visibility in the environment. Now, having said that, we're not a costing analytics solution today by any stretch of the imagination, but we do provide some really good cost analytics and cost visibility information. And David's going to give you some more insight into where we're headed in that area as well. So just very quickly here, you can see I'm looking at my existing clouds within my environment. For any one of my clouds, I can go in and see what I'm doing from a costing perspective. So let me show you here, for example, AWS. Right, so here's AWS. I can see that this is my cost this month so far. And actually it went up from last night. This updates daily. And I can see the average monthly cost over the last 6 months and where I'm at and where I'm actually projected to end this current, this month as well. I see some of this performance data, but again, focusing in on costs. When I scroll down, we're going to come back to guidance in a moment. I'll show you that, but let's stick to costing. So here you can see that I actually have a budget. So one of the things that we can do in this in our product is go in and define budgets, and these budgets can be assigned to clouds. For example, in this case, I have a budget that's assigned to my AWS cloud, and you can see it's a monthly budget. I can do it monthly, I can do it quarterly, I can do it yearly. And you can see here that for each month I have 10,000. Later in the year, the number goes up a little bit, and I can see what my actual is against that. Right? So I have the ability to see that. And so if I actually go into the operations budget area, I'm able to see that, but also see a graph of that against, again, my budget as well. So if I go even lower, you can see here, I can see a service breakdown of all the individual components and their costs within this cloud. So you can see my CloudWatch spend, my EC2 spend, other spend here as well, like RDS, right? So you can see that and get the total. But another area which is really actually exciting here is, like, for example, in Amazon, is reserved instance recommendations, right? So it can see here that we definitely use a lot of T2 Nano, right, for our different provisioning and demos and all that. So there's a lot of them that we do. It can see what the average is. It can see the minimum, the maximum here. So what's happening here is it's saying, hey, on demand, this is costing you over $1,500. But if you, in fact, reserve $285, then you're going to actually achieve a savings of almost $400 by doing this, which represents a 26% of that number. So you can actually take that number down to just over 1,000, right? So very powerful. And this is a type of information, costing analytics information, that we do even against other clouds. So even, for example, if I scroll down and just show you my private cloud here, this is my VMware on-prem cloud. Again, I have similar information here around it from a costing perspective. And I already showed you when I go to provision an instance where we can actually see the pricing, and I can see the cloud comparison pricing as well, right? Where Adam was just showing the application blueprint. Even in the application blueprint, you can go in and actually see the pricing there for the application as well. So it's represented in multiple different areas, but just for the sake of time, and I know we're running really tight on time, I just want to touch on a few things.
A very quick question. So you are showing a dashboard of the price. Do you also get to set limits per application basis and control it? For example, if I set my maximum spend for the division or unit, it's only $1,000 for this month, and somebody's tried to provision, would you be able to control that?
So you can control that. So that's a great question. So that's actually in here where you can go in and actually create the budgets. And when you do create those budgets, you have the ability to actually assign budgets at different levels, right? So you get to actually scope the budgets as well. So I can scope it per tenant, per cloud, per group, per user. even, right? And I get to define that. So you have flexibility there, but also remember, I showed you earlier, Andy, where we have all those different policies, right? So you can also go in and get you can go in and set maximum limits on some of those policies as well and do that as part of that too.
Love to do a deep dive on that, please.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We should definitely do that and do a follow-up on that for sure. Excellent. So the other couple of things I just want to touch on here really quickly, and again, I know we're really tight on time, but just very quickly, administration, plans, and pricing. What we're going to do is we're actually going to pull this information in. So we actually detect all these different plans. So all the different sizing layouts, if you will, from the different clouds that you have and that you've tied into, we're going to pull that in. And then for each of these plans, they are typically assigned multiple price sets because different sizing will have different price sets. And then each one has a different price. And in the pricing is where you can go in and actually start to do some adjustments, right? So just want to show you something here. If I wanted to be able to mark something up, right? So provide in addition to a cost, I want to mark something up and have that visible or be able to report on that as part of my billing API as well, invoicing API. I'm able to actually, do that markup here. So I can do a fixed markup, a percent, a custom, really powerful stuff here that you can do as part of this. The last thing I just need to show, and I need to hand it over to David, is analytics. So we do provide a lot of cost analytics here. So you can see here cloud costing, for example. I can go in now and look at this by cloud. I can actually slice and dice this data and filter on this data any which way I want. As a matter of fact, I don't have time, but in reports, there are a number of costing reports that you can also export to CSV or JSON if you choose to, so you can actually pull that data out. But as David mentioned earlier, you still have ability to access this also alternatively by CLI and by API as well. And we do have a invoicing API as part of this, and David's going to touch more on that. But you can see I can get down granular in terms of the clouds. And then if I continue down, there's more information I have around each of these, as well as the projected total for each of these clouds. Utilization versus cost. This is just another quick view here. This gives you a snapshot again of your environment. And again, you have the ability here to filter on this any which way that you want. So I can go in and filter on it. But I can see what I have in my environment. And I can go in and look at this. I have my y-axis, which is price, my x-axis here, which is utilization. I like to see things in this area here, the bottom right-hand quadrant of this graph, if you will. Now, if I start to see things over here, oh, look at this. I have this machine here, its utilization is low. Its utilization is only 8%, but it's costing me $30, right? So maybe I can do some, right sizing around that to achieve that, right? Look at this guy here. I have an Avamar instance. Its utilization is less than 3%, but it's costing me over $80 a month, right? So these are sort of those cost anomalies, if you will, that you can see very quickly graphically and actually pull this out via reports and via the invoicing API as well. So the last thing I just want to touch on that, okay, well, now that I actually have seen some of that data, wouldn't it be nice to take action, right? Be able to actually take action and fix some of the things that I need to fix in my environment. Take a look at this guidance page here. I have 79 actions. I have a real good cost savings opportunity here across my environment, across my disparate clouds that I'm tied into, right? And so you can see here, this one here, I can actually go ahead and decrease memory. These ones here, I can go ahead and shut them down. This is actually an AWS. This is actually using resources. I can go shut it down. And by the way, all I have to do is click on this information button, and it says this guy's a T2 Nano, but it's sitting at 0% utilization. It's unused, right? But it's chewing up funds, right? So why don't I actually go ahead and take action? Now, if I knew that I needed this for some reason, I can actually ignore it, but I want to be able to execute and take action. So yes, I can save money, but one of the things that I really also think is powerful in here for a lot of organizations is that, you know what, occasionally you're going to run into this where increase. You actually have, certain workloads in your environment where they're running a little bit hotter, right? And we're seeing those trends. So we're actually recommending, hey, add some resources. Obviously, you're not going to save money here, but this allows you to be proactive in looking at undersized workloads as well and being able to right size them. So this whole area here around analytics is cost savings, but it's about right sizing resources, you know, taking those oversized and downsizing them, taking the undersized and right sizing them, and also getting rid of any idle resources within your environment. So because of time, I do have to leave it at that and hand it over to David. Are there any sort of last minute questions before I pass it over to David?
All right, so just a few things of what's next on this. So one of the things we're really getting into now is expanding our access to detailed cloud invoice data. So what that means really in general is we've had a lot of invoice and costing data for a while now, but getting more granular. Some people want to see what percentage of storage cost or network cost, and actually analyzing the full Amazon bill or the full Azure bill and giving you that. I'm going to actually show a little bit of that data real quick here in a second. But the other thing we're also looking in is cloud migration planning. So saying, hey, I've got this set of blueprints or applications or instances of Morpheus. What would that look like if I move them over to Amazon or Azure? What would that cost look like? So those are a lot of the things we're doing from a costing and optimizing planning perspective. So Hisham showed you a lot. And one really quick thing I do want to show, and it does highlight that CLI, is we have a ton of data. So for example, I can actually look at all my invoices for a certain cloud over a period. And you can see that granularity. We discover all your cloud resources, not just compute. You can see those marked as account resources. And I've got one here. I'm going to actually pull up one of them that we looked at earlier. And just this is a compute server running in Azure. And we do this for Oracle Cloud and Amazon and soon Google as well. And you can see that level of granularity, the line items, the usage, the rate. And this is updated nightly. So you can get a lot of cool information out of there and keep track of your spend. And it's exportable. And there's a whole UI coming with this as well here shortly. So very excited about this.